Welcome back. This is history. Protesters forcing change earlier this year in Tunisia, now succeeding in forcing change in Egypt after nearly 30 years of Mubarak rule. That's 2 Arab leaders in 2 months. We've also seen rumblings in places like Yemen and Jordan. Joining us now to talk about the winds of change in the region is Marco Vicenzino, director of the Global Strategy Project. Thanks so much for being with us. Hosni Mubarak quit yesterday. There were more demonstrations in Yemen last night. There are demonstrations today in Algeria. Are we seeing more dominoes?
I would say it's important to avoid the issue of the domino theory. It's important to avoid generalizations. What needs to be done is regional realities demand greater scrutiny. Change in the region, transformation is inevitable, but the Middle East is a very diverse region. In each country, change is going to vary in each country. In places where you have a greater repression and elements of sectarianism, the turbulent change is more likely. Where reform and transformation has been happening over the past decade in certain countries, their change may be accelerated, but it's not going to be as, I would say, as turbulent as we've seen in Algeria.
Let me jump in on that thought,
in Tunisia or Egypt.
Are we seeing the emergence of people power for the first time in the Arab world? All particular local issues aside, is there something bigger that's now sweeping because of Twitter, because of Al Jazeera, because of CNN, because of the excitement that seems to go across borders and boundaries?
Politics are no longer being driven from the top down. Now politics are being driven from the bottom up. And the idea is that not only have the rules of the game have changed, the entire game itself has changed.
Let me ask you about how the rulers are responding. In places like Jordan, the monarchy there has promised new reforms. Elsewhere, we are seeing in Bahrain promises of different steps to manage public opinion. But in Saudi Arabia, in particular, it has been the most vocal. The monarchy there was clearly against the protests in Egypt and defensive about Hosni Mubarak. What does this mean for someone like King Abdullah of Saudi Arabia?
Saudi Arabia and Egypt in recent years have enjoyed a very close relationship. Diplomatically, they've worked together with the U.S. I would say in the past decade, Saudi Arabia has implemented many reforms, but they're of an economic nature, not a political one. In addition to that, there's obviously the energy reserves gives the Saudi government a lot of money to spend on the basic well-being of its people, and it's done more so in recent years than in the past. So I think, in my opinion, places like Saudi Arabia, the winds of change will not impact it as much as other areas.
So are you suggesting that rich countries will be able to buy their way out of this problem and poor countries won't?
If they're using their money in a proper way to take care of needs, of the basic needs of its people, of grievances that may exist, but if they try to have certain outlets for expression, but if repression is going to be the means, the reaction is going to be greater.
Let me ask you, in this changing environment, and given what we saw in Cairo less than 24 hours ago, if the U.S. role is, well, if the U.S. is gaining influence or losing it? I ask you because Hosni Mubarak was an ally of Washington, and the Obama administration literally did nothing to help him. Does this diminish U.S. power and influence?
I would say it's been the dilemma of U.S. foreign policy since after the Cold War. It's the stability argument versus democracy argument. And throughout the Cold War and in recent years, the stability argument tended to prevail over the democracy argument. But the reality is today, as politics is being driven from the bottom up, the U.S. will be held more to account on its promotion of democracy. So as time goes by, the U.S. needs to shift more towards a democracy because, once again, you're going to be liable to charges of hypocrisy. And after all, the argument it's been made in recent years is that where you have democracy, in the long term, you'll have greater stability.
Marco Vicenzino, director of the Global Strategy Project. Thanks again for talking with us.
Thanks.
Well, he is the man of the hour, the Egyptian activist credited with using social media to spark this historic revolution. We are going to bring you his story next.